Chosen one, take a breath, because this is not the kind of message you stumble into by accident. Something older than chance, something with intention woven all the way through it, arranged for you to be here, in this moment, with these words in front of you. And I need you to hear what I am about to say, not as inspiration, as recognition. You are not behind in your family. You are not the one who got it wrong. You are not the struggling one, or the lost one, or the one everyone quietly worries about when the conversation shifts. You are the one who was placed there on purpose. Every wisdom tradition that has ever existed has understood this pattern. Some people are born not just into families, but into assignments. Not to inherit what has always been, but to interrupt it. To become the threshold through which a bloodline crosses into a different story. And these people carry signs, not blessings only, signs, in their pain, in their gifts, in their relentless knowing, in the season they are standing in right now. 9 of them, I believe every single one has already appeared in your life. Stay with me. What you are about to recognize about yourself will not feel like new information. It will feel like finally putting a name to something you have always known. Before I show you the first sign, I want to tell you something about what is ahead. By the time this is over, you are going to understand why your lowest points were not random. You are going to understand why you have always felt different from the people you grew up with, not better, different, and what that difference actually means. And at a certain point, I am going to share something that neuroscientists have confirmed about why the calling you carry has been harder to access than it should have been, and what changes when you remove that specific block. Stay until the end. What comes together here is not something you want to catch halfway. Let's begin with the first sign, and I want you to notice something before I name it. This sign may not look like a sign to you. It may look like the thing you have been most frustrated about. For as long as you can remember, you have felt financially different from the people you grew up with. Not greedy, not obsessed with money in a hollow way, but somewhere inside you, a different standard has always been operating quietly, like a compass that refuses to stop pointing. You noticed things as a child that the people around you didn't seem to notice. The way certain decisions got made, the way certain conversations ended, the way certain words like, "We can't afford that," or "That's just how it is for us," landed in your body with a weight that felt wrong, even when you were too young to explain why. There is a specific moment for most people who carry this. Maybe it happened in a kitchen. Maybe it was a car ride. Maybe it was watching someone in your family quietly put something back on a shelf while saying nothing. And something in you said, not loudly, just clearly, "This doesn't have to stay this way." That was not ingratitude. That was not disloyalty to the people you love. That was directional. Here is what most people miss. The ones who are placed in a bloodline to change its trajectory are almost never the ones who inherited comfort. They are almost always the ones who felt the friction first. The ones who noticed the gap before anyone named it. The ones for whom the way things have always been simply never sat right, not because they were ungrateful, but because they were already paying attention to something that the people around them hadn't seen yet. If you have felt this, if you have spent years carrying a standard inside you that your current circumstances have not yet caught up to, that feeling has a name, and it is the first of 9 signs. Now the second sign. And I want to tell you up front, this one may be the hardest to hear, because for most people who carry this assignment, it has never felt like a sign. It has felt like a burden. It has felt that way for a very long time. You have been the responsible one, maybe in your family growing up, maybe in your closest relationships, maybe in rooms where everyone looked around for someone to hold things together, and somehow, consistently, it was you. You carried weight before anyone asked you to carry it. You worried about the finances before they were officially your responsibility. You held space for other people's pain, even in the seasons when you were running empty yourself. And it has cost you, quietly, consistently, in ways that are difficult to name out loud, without it sounding like a complaint, which is also something you have never wanted to do. I want to say this carefully. What I am describing is not weakness. It is not a pattern that needs to be fixed before you can step into what you were placed here to do. It is an early expression of something. Moses did not raise his hand and volunteer to lead a people out of captivity. He was formed first. He was formed through the weight of watching suffering that was not his own, through years of carrying something he couldn't fully name, through a desert season that looked from the outside like a man going nowhere. The burden came before the calling was clear. The weight was part of the formation. The responsible one in a family, the one who has always felt the weight of everyone else, is not someone who drew the short straw. They are someone being shaped by something larger than the current season. And I mean this with everything I have. Carrying this in a way that breaks you is not the assignment. There is a version of this that is healthy. There is a version of this that is sustainable. Knowing the difference is part of what you are moving toward. The weight you have carried is a sign, not a sentence, a sign, and then the third sign. This one, I want you to sit with for a moment before I explain it. Your lowest points have produced your clearest clarity. Not the ordinary kind of clarity that comes when everything is calm and going well. The kind that shows up in the middle of the worst seasons when there is no logical reason for it to be there. The kind that arrives at 2 inches the morning when you have no idea how things are going to work out, and somewhere in that darkness, something crystallizes, a direction, a knowing, a quiet certainty about what matters and what doesn't. Most people, when things fall apart, go dark, they go small, and that is completely understandable. That is what pressure does to most people. But you, even in the hardest seasons, have come out the other side with something sharper inside you, something more defined, not less, as if the pressure, instead of destroying the shape, revealed it. Picture a seed placed in the ground. From the outside, nothing is happening. The ground is still and cold and dark. But inside that seed, the very pressure that looks like death to anyone watching is forcing something outward, something that was already there but had no reason to move until the darkness came. The seed does not know it is becoming the tree. It only knows the pressure. But the pressure and the becoming are not two different things. Your lowest points have been the pressure, the clarity you found in them that was the becoming. 3 signs, each one disguised as a problem, each one wearing the face of something difficult. But here is what shifts when you hold them differently. What if the places that have felt the hardest are the exact places that have been doing the most work? Stay with me, because what comes next is different. These next 3 signs are not in your circumstances. They are not in what has happened to you. They are in who you are. The 4th sign is in the way you see wealth. And I want to be precise here, because there are 2 different ways a person can care about money, and they feel completely different from the inside. You do not see wealth as a trophy. You have never wanted it for the image or the status, at least not at the deepest level of your motivation. When you imagine actually having more, when you let yourself sit with that picture honestly, what your mind moves toward almost without being told is what it would mean for the people around you, what it would mean for your family, what it would mean for the ones who have been inside the same patterns for as long as you can remember. That is not ambition wearing a spiritual costume. That is a calling. Joseph did not dream of wealth for himself. His dreams, the ones that got him thrown into a pit by his own brothers, the ones that took 13 full years to begin unfolding, were always about provision. About being positioned in the right place when the famine came, so a people could be fed. The richest chapter in his family's story was never about his accumulation. It was about his capacity to carry something for others. The richest person in your family is not a title for whoever collects the most. It is a position for the one who becomes the provision point. The one through whom resources flow out, not just in. The one whose life, when it finally opens for everyone connected to them. If wealth to you has always been more about what it does than what it says about you. That is the fourth sign. The fifth sign is a drive in you that cannot be fully explained by your circumstances. And I mean this in a very specific way. Other people have goals. Other people have motivation that makes logical sense. They are working towards something clear, and they have reasons that anyone could follow. What you have is different. It is a persistent internal push that has continued even when the external evidence argued against it, even when things were not working, even when rational thought would have said, slow down, stop, be realistic. Something in you refused. You perceive things that other people around you do not always perceive. You see connections before they become visible. You sense when something is off or when something is aligned in ways that you have probably learned not to explain to people who have never experienced it. This is not wishful thinking. This is a function. This is the way a certain kind of mind, a certain kind of assignment moves through the world. You have been told to calm down, to have a backup plan, to stop dreaming so big. And I want to say this clearly and without apology. The voice that said those things was not wisdom. It was the ceiling speaking, and the ceiling is not the sky. The fifth sign is that drive, that unkillable knowing that something larger is in motion, something worth moving toward even when the path hasn't made itself visible yet. That is not stubbornness. That is a signal. And then the sixth sign comes quietly, in the way certain things have kept finding you even when you were not looking for them. The right conversation, arriving before you knew you needed it. A door opening precisely when the one you were expecting stayed closed. Information reaching you through a channel you never would have thought to look in. This moment right here, right now, finding your way to these words is part of that thread. I am not saying the universe delivers everything on demand. I am not saying faith eliminates difficulty. What I am saying is, look at the thread, because there is one woven through your life, and when you start to trace it backward, the connections that should not have happened did happen. The things that should not have reached you anyway. The moments that should not have landed the way they did, landed exactly the way they needed to. People who are placed in their family line for a specific purpose tend to be guided more actively than they realize, not loudly, not with dramatics. Just the thread keeps appearing again and again for those who are willing to see it. 6 signs, each one pointing in the same direction. 3 hidden in your hardships and 3 woven into the architecture of who you are. And if you have recognized yourself in any of these, if even 2 or 3 of them have landed the way I think they might have landed, then what I am about to show you next is going to change how you read your entire story. Because the 3 signs that remain are not about what you have been through or what you carry. They are about what has been happening to you. And when you see them for what they are, the signs that have been there the whole time, in the middle of the seasons, that made the least sense, everything before them gets recontextualized. Stay with me. We left at 6 signs. And I told you the ones that remain are different. Not different because they are louder or more dramatic. Different because of what they reveal about the story you have already lived through and why it happened the way it did. The 7th sign is this: you have been delayed, not denied. I want to sit in that distinction for a moment, because those are not the same thing, and most people have been treating them as if they are. Denial means the door is closed. Delay means the door is not ready yet, or more accurately, that you are not yet fully ready for what is behind it. And the difference changes everything about how you read the seasons you have been inside. Joseph carried a dream for 13 years before it began to unfold. 13 years from the vision to the palace. And in those 13 years, a pit, a slave market, a foreign country, a false accusation, a prison. 13 years of circumstances that argued against the dream at every single turn. The dream never changed. The delay was the formation. I cannot tell you exactly when. I will not give you a timeline, because that would not be honest, and you deserve honesty more than you deserve comfort right now. What I can tell you is this: there is a pattern. And the pattern says that the people who were marked for the kind of breakthrough we are talking about, the kind that shifts not just one life, but an entire bloodline, those people almost always carry a longer preparation. The people around them, not as punishment, as deepening. The waiting you have been in is not evidence that it is not coming. It is evidence of how significant it is. And there is something practical inside this sign, something I do not want to skip over. Waiting well is different from waiting passively. There is a way to be in a delay that positions you for the moment of emergence, and a way to be in a delay that keeps you looping in the same place. The difference is not effort. It is alignment, staying close to what you know to be true about your calling, even when the evidence hasn't arrived yet. Building in the small spaces, refusing to let the season shrink who you are becoming. The seventh sign is the delay. And if you have been waiting for a long time, if you have been faithful in a season that has lasted longer than you expected and longer than you can fully explain, that is not failure. That is a sign. Now the eighth sign. And this one requires me to say something that needs to be heard in the right way. The opposition you have faced has not been proportional to what you were asking for. There have been obstacles in your path that felt like more than coincidence. Resistance from places you did not expect, setbacks that came precisely when things were beginning to move. Voices sometimes from inside your own family, sometimes from inside your own head, that arrived with unusual force whenever you got close to something important. I am not framing this as victimhood. I am framing this as information. Things that are not significant do not attract this level of opposition. A candle does not need to be extinguished. Only something that might actually illuminate something gets treated that way. The spiritual warrior, and this is one of the identities you are carrying, is not formed in comfort. The spiritual warrior is formed in the resistance. In the moments of holding ground when everything in the natural world said, "Let go, step back, this is too hard." Every time you held ground, something in you was being built that cannot be built any other way. You are tougher than you give yourself credit for, and the opposition you have faced is part of the marking. Those are 8 signs, and I have now shown you the full picture, the ones in your early formation, the ones in your gifts, and the ones in your history. But before I show you the 9th sign, the one that pulls all of this together into something I believe will change how you see your entire life, I need to tell you about something that has been working against you. Something real. Something that has nothing to do with your faith or your effort or your character. Because there is a reason why people who are carrying a calling like this often feel like they are pushing through invisible resistance. A reason that most people have never been told, because the people who could tell them have had very little incentive to do so. Neuroscientists studying brain development have documented something called the decline effect, and I want to explain what this actually means because it is directly relevant to everything we have been talking about. When you were a child, before the world had fully taught you what was and wasn't possible for someone like you, your brain was operating at a specific frequency. Researchers call it gamma. It is the brainwave state associated with rapid learning, intuition, pattern recognition, the kind of clarity and creative connection that seems effortless in children and increasingly difficult in adults. Ancient traditions called this the anointing, the state of being fully alive to your own intelligence. Children access this state naturally and constantly. And then, something begins to happen around age 7. It is not dramatic, it does not happen all at once. But as the environment begins to shape identity, as schools, families, financial patterns, and inherited beliefs begin to define the ceiling that gamma access starts to narrow. Not because the capacity disappears, because access to it gets blocked by what accumulated on top of it. Stress, unworthiness, inherited ceilings, the slow compression of a potential that was always there but has had less and less room to breathe. Dr. Robert Lake, a neuroscientist with 34 years of experience in brain science, spent years studying this specific problem. And what he developed after working with institutions like Princeton, Harvard, and MIT is a 7-minute audio track built on a technology called brain entrainment. It is called the Genius Song. What it does, specifically, is use sound frequencies to guide the brain back toward that gamma state, not through effort, not through meditation or visualization or any practice that requires extended discipline. Just 7 minutes through headphones once a day. I want to be honest with you about what this is and what it is not. This is not a miracle. This is not a replacement for the work of becoming who you were placed here to be. It is a tool. A very specific tool for a very specific problem. The problem of operating below the brain frequency you were born to access in a season where you need every part of yourself available. Over 18,000 people have used it. The standard price is $49. But Dr. Lake has made it available at $39 through the link I have placed in the description and the pinned comment below. A price that does not exist anywhere else. Not on Amazon, not anywhere. Because he wanted it in the hands of people who are ready for it, not just people who can afford it. If this resonates with you, if something in you says yes to this, the link is there for you. And if it is not your time for this, hold it loosely. What I am about to show you matters more than any tool, because the 9th sign is the one that changes everything. Let me say the 9th sign slowly, because I want it to land all the way. You were not born into your family, you were sent to it. I need you to stay with that for a moment. Let it move through you before your mind tries to organize it. Not born into, sent to. There is a difference between arriving somewhere by chance and arriving somewhere with a purpose already built into your arrival. Between inheriting a story and being positioned to rewrite it. Between being a product of your environment and being a response to it. Moses was not an accident in Pharaoh's house. He was placed there in the center of the system he was later called to dismantle because he needed to understand it from the inside before he could lead a people out of it. Joseph was not accidentally in Egypt. He was positioned to be exactly where provision would be needed when the moment of famine came. The seed is not randomly buried. It is placed in the ground, in the dark, in the exact conditions required for the tree it is becoming. You were placed in the family you were placed in for a reason. Not because it was easy, not because it was comfortable, not because the environment matched the calling, but because the cycle breaker does not come from the family that has already broken the cycle. The cycle breaker comes from inside the cycle, carrying something the cycle itself could not produce, and walks the whole bloodline across a threshold no one before them was able to reach. You are that person, not because you are without flaws or fear or doubt, not because you have all of this figured out, but because every sign I have shown you today has been pointing to this, the specific pattern of someone who was sent, not just born. Someone who carries the weight early because the weight is preparation. Someone whose clarity comes from the lowest points because that is where the seed gets forced open. Someone whose drive does not make logical sense because it was not given by logic. Someone who has been delayed because what they are being prepared to carry required a longer formation than the people around them. You are the cycle breaker, the one who ends what has been handed down so that what gets handed forward is different. You are the deliverer, not in a dramatic, overnight sense, but in the steady, faithful, long formation sense of someone who was placed inside a story to carry the people in it towards something they could not have reached without you. You are the pioneer, the first through a door that no one in your bloodline has walked through before, so that everyone who comes after you stands on different ground. You are the seer, the one who has always perceived something beyond what the current season could show and was right to keep perceiving it. You are the spiritual warrior, the one who held ground when everything said to let go and was shaped into something harder and more durable through every moment of holding. The richest chapter in your family's story has not been written yet. And you were born, you were sent to write it. Now let me say something that I genuinely mean, and I want you to receive it not as flattery, but as an honest observation from someone who has been paying close attention. I do not know the exact shape of what comes next for you. I cannot give you a date. I cannot promise a specific outcome. What I can tell you is the pattern, and the pattern says that people who have recognized themselves in all 9 of these signs are not at the beginning of a journey. They are at a threshold. The preparation has been happening. The formation has been real. And the seed that has been in the ground, the one that has been under pressure, in the dark, in the silence, is not dying. It is the tree. Everything that has been confusing about your path, the delay, the burden, the pressure, the opposition, it was not random, and it was not punishment. It was the pressure that forces the seed outward. It was the darkness that teaches the root where to go. And the tree that comes from a seed that has spent that long in the ground is not a small tree. It is the kind that provides shade for everyone standing under it. That is you. You came into this world carrying something. And today, in this moment, through these 9 signs, you have been reminded of what it was. Now let us close this together. Let us use the last few minutes of this to do something with what just moved through you. Come with me. We begin with gratitude for the weight you have carried and the source that held you while you carried it. For the seasons that made no sense, the prayers that felt unanswered, the years of staying faithful in a holding pattern that had no visible end. We do not minimize any of it. We acknowledge it. And we thank the force behind all things for being present in every one of those moments, even when it did not feel that way. There is something in you that never gave up. Somewhere, in the middle of every hard season, a part of you held the line. We honor that. And now, we acknowledge something. The source of all things sees what you have been carrying. Not just the visible weight, the financial pressure, the family expectations, the tiredness of holding things together for so long, but the invisible weight, the prayers you prayed in private, the moments you almost let go and didn't, the version of yourself you have been protecting quietly through years of being told it was too big, too much, too far. That faithfulness in the small moments, in the unseen places, has been witnessed. Every single one. And now we release. Release the old story about what your bloodline is and is not capable of. Release the ceiling that was handed to you before you were old enough to question it. Release the survivor's guilt, the belief that rising means leaving the people you love behind. Release the comparison, the measuring of your progress against timelines that were never yours. Release the version of yourself that decided, in a painful season, that the calling was too big to be real. Release the unworthiness that was inherited, not earned, and does not belong to you. Release the waiting posture, the bracing, the holding back, the preparing to be disappointed again. Every single one of these release. And now we activate. We call forth the cycle breaker, walking fully into the assignment that was placed inside this bloodline. We activate the deliverer, the one who carries provision not just for themselves but for everyone connected to them. We open the doors that disbelief has held closed. We align the resources, the connections, the ideas, the timing, the financial shifts that have been waiting for this version of you to step forward. We activate the seer and the spiritual warrior, the pioneer and the light bearer, calling each of them into full function. We activate the brain to fire at the frequency it was created for. We activate the God-given intelligence that has been partially blocked, and we call it back, fully, completely, without reservation. We protect what is rising. Guard the becoming from premature exposure. Protect the seed that is pushing upward from the voices that will try to call it back down. Protect the calling from the self-sabotage pattern that has broken things apart before, not with fear, but with the fierce, grounded certainty of someone who knows what is being built and refuses to let it be taken apart again. What has been lifted, let nothing pull it back. And now we declare, I am the cycle breaker. I am the first of a new chapter in my bloodline. I was not born into this family. I was sent to it. The richest story in my family has not been written yet, and I was placed here to write it. The seed I have been buried, pressured, silent, and faithful is already the tree. And so it is. It is done. It is sealed. We receive it. Before you carry this with you into the rest of your day, there is one thing I want to ask. If today something in you shifted, if any part of this landed in a way that felt like recognition and not just inspiration, type the word seed in the comments right now. Not for me, for you. Because there is something that happens when you put language to a knowing, when you take the thing that has been living quietly inside you and bring it out into the open. Type seed. That is all. And if there is someone in your life, someone who has been carrying the weight of their family, someone who has been in a long delay and does not yet understand why, someone who needs to hear that the pressure they are under is not punishment but formation, share this with them. They may not be able to explain why they needed it until after they have heard it. The link for the Genius song is in the description and the pinned comment below, only there, not anywhere else, because there are versions online that do not carry the actual brain entrainment technology. If you feel called to that, the link is there. You came here today for a reason, and the reason was not random. I am glad it was you. Go carry what you carry, and carry it knowing what it is.